is speaking, but my name is Heather Campbell. I am a registered dietitian. You guys should have received a copy in your email of a workbook that looks like this. It's in a PDF. You can look at it on your phone. You can scroll through it. You can print it out and write on it. I am a tactile learner, so I have to write. Okay, good. I'm glad that I'm showing as the speaker for you. Maybe mine is just different and it doesn't want to show me as the speaker, which is totally fine. As long as you guys can see me and hear me, that is important. There we go. Wonderful. Thank you. So here we are again. You should have this workbook. I'm a tactile learner. I like to write on it. I have notes here that I'm sharing with you that I've also written on. So if you see me shuffling papers, that's just the reality. I have to touch it and I have to use it. And I wish that I could say I had a really big fancy office with multiple screens, but I don't. I'm just a person, just a military spouse. For those of you who are not familiar with independent, you can open in your workbooks and you'll see just a little bit about our workshop, what we're going to be doing here at Fuel the Homefront. We're going to aim to be about 90 minutes today, and we have sort of a part 1 and a part 2. So in the first part of our workshop, we are going to be discussing the economics of the groceries, how to stretch them, how to stretch those dollars, how to be shopping. And then also part 2 will be more specifics of the basics of healthy eating. So when we're talking about getting our families to the table, what do we even put on the table in a way that 1, our families are actually going to eat it, and 2, in a way that's not overwhelming. So we're going to be going through that in the workbook for you today. A little bit about Independent. It is a nonprofit that's been around for almost 10 years. We have been virtual since before virtual was cool, but it is designed for military and first responder spouses with an influence on wellness. And we're very excited to offer Fuel the Homefront and address both financial wellness and nutrition wellness, sort of under one umbrella, especially with the current inflation, with the current food insecurity numbers. Really glad to bring this into you guys. A little bit about me, you'll see on the bottom of that page. I'm a military spouse, registered dietitian, stationed in Eielson Air Force Base, Alaska. So there's snow outside for me right now and it's 20 degrees, and I am a mom of 3. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. I'm going to share my screen with you guys so that you can see exactly what I am looking at. I have the PDF pulled up. So you should be able, great, to see me and the PDF at the same time. And the reason I'm doing that is so that if you don't have the PDF handy, if you're going to look at it later, you're still going to be able to see it here on the screen and also be able to follow along. There we go. Follow along with exactly what we're talking about. Do I like it that way? I think I like it that way. There we go. We can see the whole page at once. Okay, please make sure that you are sharing in the chat whatever questions you have. I will try to monitor those as I can. I know that we have a couple of our independent team members here to help me monitor those as well. So when you go to this first page on, or I guess it's after it talks about me and independent, which is always weird to see a picture of myself in the workbook. But we're going to talk about starting. Why are we talking about family meals? What is it about family meals that makes us want to put on this workshop? And you can either write below on there, you can type into the chat, but why is having a family meal important to you? What barriers are preventing you from having daily meals? Maybe it's schedules, maybe it's budget, but any ideas that you or the group have to address those barriers, like kind of write those below, put them in the chat, let us know why it's difficult for your family to have family meals. I know as a military family, our location changes a lot. Who's at the table changes, whether or not my service member is home, what friends we have, where we live, what food we can afford, what our house looks like, that all changes. But the one thing that's constant is our ability to gather at the table, whether it's at home or at Taco Bell, but our ability to feed our family. And that's where we can really intentionally pour into relationships and sort of build this resilient family foundation that we hear so much about, is over those few minutes of interaction around family meals, which is why obviously we are so passionate about it here at Independent. But the reality of family meals in the military means that we have to acknowledge that 1 in 4 military families are struggling with food insecurity, which is where this workshop came from. How do we make this easier for you guys to gather your people around the table? Now, if you look down just a little bit lower, before we get into the definition, I heard someone entering. Before we really get into food insecurity or more about those details, I want to share some data that I have with you. I don't have the year here, but per the National Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse, they go by CASA, C-A-S-A, CASA, at Columbia University. The more often children eat dinner with their parents, the less likely they are to smoke, drink, or use illicit drugs. So the more often children eat with their parents or their guardians, they're less likely to smoke, drink, or use illicit drugs. So we know that there's benefits in having family meals. Also, according to CASA, adolescents and young adults who seek treatment for depression, anxiety, and other emotional problems are about half as likely as their peers to have regular family meals. So we know that there is benefit psychologically to having these family meals together. I'm a registered dietitian. My governing body is the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. They also have research. Of course, I appreciate this one, but children who join family dinners are more likely to eat fruit, higher amounts of fruits, vegetables, minerals, and vitamins. So they're eating better. So we know that not only is there this emotional benefit of families eating together, but there's a nutritional benefit of being able to gather and eat intentionally together. Also, through the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, children with family meals will have fewer saturated fats, fewer snacks, and drink less soda. So we know that this is important. Okay, so what's the barriers for us as military family members? This goes to the bottom portion of that page. Food insecurity. I want to quickly touch on this. The U.S. Department of Agriculture defines food insecurity. It's an economic status, and it refers to a lack of consistent access to enough food for every person in the household to live an active and healthy lifestyle. Again, it's a lack of consistent access to enough food or resources to get food for every person in the household to live an active and healthy lifestyle. So why does this happen? What's contributing to it, especially in our military community? Multiple factors. I believe we have it down here. Yes. Do we include it down? I'm trying to make sure we put it in here. Yes. In 2022, Military Family Advisory Network came out with their causal data. And in there were four main factors that they found of why food insecurity happens. Some of them are listed here in this paragraph, but the main ones are loss of spousal income, recent relocation, a family emergency or an unexpected expense, and also adding a family member. Those are the main four reasons that they found within their organization. There are a few other ones listed down here. Cost of housing and childcare, family emergencies, student debt, location and the cost of living, personal finances, inconsistent eligibility for nutrition support like WIC or SNAP. These are all things that contribute to why a military family might be struggling. You'll see there that I put that you can look at Appendix D for the most up-to-date WIC income eligibility for your area to see if you qualify. Also, this food insecurity is more common to newer military members with families, but it can happen at any rank. So it's not just our junior enlisted members. In July of 2022, the Department of Defense released their data that 1 in 4 military families are struggling. Military Family Advisory Network, who gives us our causal data, they also found that enlisted families are 5 times more likely to experience this than officer families. So this is a thing. This is happening. How can we help? That is where this workshop comes in. Now, the first part we're going to talk about, again, I already sort of clued you guys in, is how to stretch your groceries. Now, for the purpose of this workshop, we are not going to discuss budget 101, how to look at ins and outs and all of that thing. We're going to assume that you guys have already met with somebody to talk about budget, or that you are aware that you can get that through your installation. There's multiple nonprofits. There's lots of resources we have to look at the details of your personal family budget. What I am going to teach you is how to stretch those dollars specifically when it comes to groceries and feeding your family. Now, resources available. Step 1, you have to know your numbers. You have to know what's coming in, what's coming out. Again, in Appendix A, you're going to see a list of national resources. Those are towards the back. You can also find it on our website, but those are a list of places that can help you identify what's in the budget, what's coming in, what's going out, where can you maybe tighten things up or make an impact. After you sort of know where your dollars are, what's coming in, what's going out, then step 2 is to plan for groceries. So you can't stretch the dollars until you know what you're working with, right? Now we have to plan for the groceries. Now, according to the USDA, you can see this in an appendix in the back of your handbook as well. The Thrifty Food Plan, I am actually going to scroll all the way back to it so that you can see. as I scroll back, I had all of this saved on a slide deck that it's disappeared in my computer, as you guys can understand. Okay, thrifty food plan here. This is an Appendix C. You can see right here in the back. I'm going to zoom in. This is looking at what it costs to feed Americans. So we're in October, September 2022 data is the most recent. We have the full month, and this gets adjusted every month. And this is showing how much it costs. So you can see here, here's a reference family, male and female between 20 and 50, and 2 school-age kids is about $965. Now you can go to this website that's listed down here. You can pull that information. You can find different information for Alaska and Hawaii. It's a little different. You can find, of course, all of this above. You could do your own monthly cost for what your family situation looks like. But this gives you sort of a starting point of how much should I be spending on groceries? Again, this isn't saying you have to be spending this much or you should only be spending this much, but this gives you a reference point of what is the U.S. Department of Agriculture telling us it costs to feed an American right now. What's interesting to note is that if you look at September 2022 data and September 2019 data, the cost of groceries, this thrifty food plan, has gone up 48%. I did not pull 2021 or 2020. I did not pull the pandemic years, but that last pre-pandemic fall, what did the cost of groceries look like? And it's gone up 48%. So there's no denying that on top of our regular inflation, groceries have skyrocketed, and it is more expensive than ever to try to feed your family. Also, this thrifty food plan, this dollar amount here that's listed for individuals, you guys can kind of see on that far right-hand side, that is what SNAP, or the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, previously known as food stamps, that's what they use to determine how much they're paying for. So what their minimum is, saying, hey, the very minimum to feed myself, a female between the ages of 20 and 50, is $239.80. So if I were to get SNAP benefits, they would say, okay, we expect that she's going to spend at least this much to make sure she meets her nutrition needs. So this is important when we're looking at how much does it actually cost to feed your family. It's good to know that reference point. Again, back to where we were in the workbook. Oh, that is scrolling way slower than I want to. I want to go all the way back up. There we go. You guys will see here that it says about $70 per adult male per week. So you might hear from families, or you might be a family yourself that says, hey, I'm spending more money than ever on food. Yeah, we all are. Everybody has gone up, and we have the data to back that up. So that's not to say, oh, just suck it up, but hey, let's figure out how we can stretch those dollars when we know what everybody's situation looks like, that we're all seeing this inflation. How do we stretch those dollars? Okay, step 3 in stretching your groceries. So you have to know your budget. You have to know sort of that reference point. You have to know how the USDA Thrifty Food Plan works, what they're estimating. Step 3, oh, I was making sure. Yep, reference the appendix. I wrote in big red letters, make sure to look at the appendix to show you guys the chart. Step 3 is knowing where to shop. So this is where I would love to take like 2 minutes and have you guys drop in the chat some of these different places of where you shop. Here in interior Alaska, I will tell you, I'm going to go ahead and set a timer for 2 minutes while you're dropping that in the chat. But let me know, where you're shopping for each of these things. No, I don't want to. I accidentally clicked find a person. No, I just want to set a timer on my watch. All right, there we go. 3 minutes. Produce here in interior Alaska is very expensive and very difficult to get good quality produce. So there's certain places I know that if I want quality that's actually going to stay good in my house or survive the drive home, there's certain places I need to shop. Then dry goods, meat, fish, dairy, frozen, share, especially those of you who are in that same area. Where are you guys shopping for all of these things? Let's see. Yes, link in the workbook. Okay. HEB and Kroger. Oh, HEB in Texas. Yes, that's so good. Walmart, Kroger. Yep, Kroger here in Alaska is Fred Meyer. And I also use Costco as a family of 5. We are in a season that I can use Costco for regular groceries because we go through the food. So that is really nice because they are very affordable in my area. Yeah, Costco, Hy-Vee. Oh, Omaha is my home, and they have Hy-Vee in the Midwest, and I love Hy-Vee. Fun fact about Hy-Vee is they actually have registered dietitians on staff that you can use to help you shop through the store. So free of charge, you can talk to a registered dietitian to help with your groceries. So I am a big fan of the grocery store, Hy-Vee. Target is sometimes cheaper. Sam's for a lot of things, especially produce. Yeah, absolutely. One thing I do want to make sure to mention to you guys, if you had not seen that DECA, which is the Defense Commissary Agency, they recently announced that they are fully funded by the government. Long story short, for a period of time, they had to cover their own margin, which meant they could give us savings on some things and they had to generate profit on the other to cover their own savings, which was kind of, saving us in one pocket and taking out of our pocket on the other side. So finally, Congress agreed, yep, you guys are fully funded. We want you giving this discount to the military members, and we are going to cover that savings. We are going to cover that budget. So that is huge. So normally in the commissary, you'll see an average of 22 to 23% savings from your local market. They've now committed to making that 25%. Now, again, that's going to be compared with your local market. So shopping here at the commissary in Alaska is going to be more expensive than the commissary in Alabama, where I was previously stationed. But that is designed to give you guys that opportunity to have those savings. Now, if you live in a tax-free state, like Alaska, I don't pay taxes to get my groceries, or in Florida, you don't pay taxes on groceries. So sometimes it was cheaper to shop off installation because I wasn't paying a tax or a surcharge. In Alabama, where there was a 10% tax, it was cheaper at the commissary because the 5% surcharge was cheaper than the 10% tax. So it kind of varies, but I know for me consistently, dry goods, frozen goods, dairy and eggs, and meat and household items, those are all pretty reliable at my commissary. Produce is quite frankly terrible. I think we see that at a lot of the overseas bases that Oconus shipping food in, it's just not a great option for produce. So that's a consistent one where, where you shop and where the group shops, make sure you're writing down in that chat, where people say that they're shopping. Yes, that should not be going off. But make sure that you're taking note of people, sort of where they're joining from, where they're shopping, because there might be some place you didn't know, like that detail about Hy-Vee and the dietitians. That's really good to know. Typically, when I teach this workshop in a location, we kind of all chime in and talk over each other and say all of those things, which is why we have this area to say where we're shopping and where the group shops. And you guys can see I broke it down by different commissary items or grocery items because I can get dry goods and frozen goods relatively affordably at my commissary, but that's not where I'm getting my produce. So it's important to know. Also frustrating that I have to go to multiple locations, but know where to shop. When you're looking at how can we stretch those dollars, knowing where you can use your dollars the best way is a really, really important step. Let me make sure this is on Do Not Disturb so that nobody else calls us. There we go. Making sure that you know where the best place to shop in your location. And unfortunately, because we move a lot, it changes. If you live near an Aldi, I highly recommend shopping at Aldi. But all that to say, knowing which places you can go, maybe you can do a combination of, say, Hy-Vee and Costco, or H-E-B and Costco, and that can meet your needs. For us, I try to do mostly commissary. Our commissary is very small, so I still have to supplement with items in town. Like I can't get poblano peppers, which I don't think are super fancy, but they're difficult in Alaska. So I can't get them at the commissary. I have to go in town. So I'm probably mostly commissary and Costco and a little bit of local Kroger sprinkled in there. But knowing where to shop will help you know where are the places you're regularly going so that you can be looking for those sales, which is this next step. Step 4, pay attention to the sales and the ads. Pay attention. Know where you like to go, what's going to have good quality food, and also when they have their sales. Typically, they turn over midweek. You can often find them online. I used to scroll it when I was taking care of the baby. When I would be nursing, I would sit and scroll in and see what was on sale, because I would then, which we'll talk about in a minute, I would plan my groceries around what was on sale. So maybe I had an idea that we were going to have one meat, but another meat went on sale. We would change, okay, we're going to have that other thing that's on sale, or what produce is on sale. If you're trying to get blueberries, fresh blueberries, say in January, or fresh cranberries in July, you're going to pay a premium because those are likely not in season in your local area. So knowing those things here in step 4, pay attention to sales, pay attention to ads, then you'll know when to stock up on something. Hey, this is a great deal. I should stock up. Also, we'll talk in a couple of minutes when we're talking about what foods to be making. You have to pay attention to your storage, which I have here. Consider your storage and your budget. If you are going to go to Costco and load up your buggy and you have like a tiny little freezer, it's not going to go well. So I recommend don't get more freezer things than you have space to store. So no, do I need to buy things that are shelf stable? Do I have the space to store perishable items, that sort of thing? And paying attention to price tags. You'll see oftentimes in the store, they'll break it down like price per serving or price per ounce. If you have kids who are with you who are practicing division or math, this is a great way to entertain them in the store. Entertain. It's a great way to keep them busy. I don't know if it necessarily entertains them, but it's a great way to bring those math skills in to say, okay, how much does that cost? If I were to get, this one is twice the size, how much would it cost if I bought 2 of the other one? That sort of thing. You can practice those math skills with your kids. I just use my calculator on my phone, but paying attention to those price tags. I recently went to get milk, and the large jug, we were lactose free in my family, the large jug of the Lactaid brand was more expensive in the jug than the individual container per ounce. So when I looked, I thought, okay, I'll get the big jug. That makes more sense. But it was actually more expensive than if I just bought the 2 individual half gallons. So paying attention, just taking those extra 30 seconds, check the label and make sure that you're using your dollar most effectively in the grocery store, because buying in bulk doesn't always equal saving money. So make sure you're watching those tags. And then also knowing where to receive local and national assistance. Again, we have those in the back of your book in Appendix A, where you can find national resources for help, things like American Legion, Blue Star Families, Military Family Advisory Network, where you can connect with some of those agencies to get support, and also what you can see in the local area. Food banks, you can go to feedingamerica.org and look up your closest food bank. Many times we have one either on or near every single military installation in the States. So finding where food banks are, finding information about WIC, finding information about soup kitchens, those are great ways that you can stretch those dollars if you can get food that's available at little to no cost, or if you can take advantage of things like Armed Services YMCA doing a pizza giveaway. Great, we're not cooking dinner today because we're going to drive through and get the free pizza. So just be paying attention to those things of what's available in your local area, which again, we all move a lot and our local area changes, and that's really annoying. Some things are consistent from installation to installation within your military branch, but some things aren't. And if you go to a joint military branch or you go to a different part of the country, there is a little bit of a learning curve there, but pay attention to those things because those can really become useful. Okay, last thing for stretching your groceries, knowing how to stretch those dollars when it comes to groceries, reducing waste. Now, I want to say when it comes to leftovers, I'm not a big leftovers fan. Like I have to repurpose them or they just have to be ready to eat. But like the idea of taking out a big container of chili and slopping it into a bowl and microwaving that, like it's just not a great fit for my family. So I have to be really intentional about leftovers. So one thing that we found that works is keeping that food ready to eat. So if you've got produce that you're buying, making sure that the grapes are ready to eat, making sure, if you have bell peppers, that they're either the snack bell peppers or that you've already cut them up, but just making things ready to eat either for your children or for yourself really reduces the likelihood of that food sitting in your fridge and maybe getting forgotten in the back. And then you find it later and forget you bought it, and then you're annoyed and throw it away, which I have done. Making sure that those things are ready to eat really will help you reduce that waste, which is ultimately going to save you money. This is money you've already paid for an item. Don't let that money and that food go to waste, right? So keeping your food ready to eat, including leftovers, individual containers, put it in individual portions, freeze what you can if it freezes well, but being mindful of that. Grocery and meal planning. That is a great way to help reduce waste and make sure that you are intentionally using your resources and your dollars. And I want to be clear that when I say meal planning, I am not talking about meal prepping, like the thing you see on social media influencers where they make all their food and eat leftovers all week. That works great for some families. I have a friend who hates to cook, and so she loves to meal prep because she only has to cook on Sundays and they eat leftovers the rest of the week. That is a good fit for her. But meal planning is just having a plan. Think about going on a road trip. We moved from Alabama to Alaska last year. I would not just get in the car and be like, well, that general direction, and we're going to hope for the best. No, we lived in a camper for 5 weeks while we moved. We had a plan. everything didn't always go according to plan, but we had a general idea of the direction we were going and how we were going to get there. It should be the same, especially when we're looking at how to budget for your groceries. You should have a plan. You should go to the grocery store knowing what foods you need, what are the staple items you need to replenish, what are those things that you want to be eating that week, what's on sale. Having that plan is really going to help you make the most and make sure you're not wasting food that you are buying, and that you're buying food that you know you actually want to be serving, not just kind of what looks good and then you get home and can't put it all together in a meal. Some people, disclaimer, have an amazing ability to just walk in the store and buy stuff and make amazing meals. I have a very dear friend. I want to be her when I grow up. She can walk in the store and just buy stuff and like make it into a meal. And that's a gift. And I don't have it. So I have to have a plan. The plan often changes, but going in with a plan is at least a starting point. We're all military. We know that you probably need like 4 backup plans, but at least having an idea when you start out. I'm going to make sure that I am looking in the chat here. And yeah, we meal planned from Alaska to Texas, but our RV fridge broke the day before our fridge broke in Texas. Must be something about campers in Texas and Alaska. Okay, and then we've got these comments of these resources. Thank you for including those in there. Okay, I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Now, that is the basics of how to stretch those grocery dollars, is making sure your leftovers, this last part, making sure your leftovers are ready to eat, your meal planning, repurposing leftovers, making them creative. We had, last night we made chicken tacos in the crock pot and you shred the chicken. And then today I used the leftover chicken in a wrap for lunch, right? So I just use that leftover chicken in a new way, still leftovers, but not the same food. And there's so many internet like wormholes you can go down for how to repurpose leftovers that we will not be teaching those here because we'll be here all night. But there are ways that you can repurpose. If you don't love to eat the same food the same way, you can repurpose some of those leftovers again, so that you are using the dollars that you've already paid for these foods. They're not going to waste. And then make sure you're considering your storage environments. Of course, don't load up your buggy at Costco and then take it all back to your camper fridge. That's not going to go really well. You need to buy some canned veggies and some canned fruits. It's not all going to fit in your little camper fridge and freezer. We did that only once, and we had to use a cooler. And then we learned that, oh, our camper fridge isn't the same size as our house fridge. We can't shop the same way. So just make sure that you're paying attention to those things. Okay, we are going to move into the second part here of specifically how to look at the nutrition side. What should we be eating? And before we go on, I'm going to take a drink of my water and give you guys a second to ask any questions. You can put them in the chat. You can unmute. You can ask here, but let me know, what questions do you have about how to stretch those dollars and what resources to be using when you are doing that? Okay, no questions so far. If they come up, please chime in, because I want to be respectful of your time and continue moving forward. We're going to move into the next part with the basics of healthy eating. Now, if you look in your workbook, you'll see here Appendix E and F for graphics. I'm going to do the same as before. We're going to scroll down and I'm actually going to show you guys these things, okay? Because I want you to see what I am looking at. Okay, this is where we are going to start. And I have a love-hate relationship with these resources. So we'll just say that up front. When we are talking about healthy eating, first of all, healthy is subjective. Second of all, healthy does not mean lowest amount of calories. Calories are a measurement of energy. When you measure energy in a light bulb, it's in kilowatts, right? When you measure energy in like in chemistry, it's in joules or something like that, right? We have energy in miles per gallon in our cars, right? So calorie is a measurement of energy in the body, how much energy we get from our food, how much energy does it take to do a certain activity. So healthy does not equate to lowest amount of energy. So please do not hear me say that. That's why I love looking at this My Plate visual. This is, you guys might remember there was something years ago that was like the pyramid and it was like the tiers and then it was like slices, and it was just an all around really terrible graphic. So they created a new one much more user-friendly. That is, how do we actually look at our plate? So if I'm sitting at the table and I'm looking at my plate, I want half of it to be fruits and vegetables, which you can see here, and the other half shared between your protein and your grain. Now, you'll see that dairy is off to the side. That is an accompaniment to the meal. It's a great source of lots of vitamins and minerals and protein for those who can have it or those who want to have it. If you're vegan, if you have a dairy allergy, if you are lactose intolerant, this part might not be a really big part of your eating routine, and that's not bad. You can still get those nutrients from other foods, which is why I love that now it's included on the side, that not everybody eats that way, and you can still have a very healthful and adequate eating plan without including dairy. So when we're looking at this, when we're talking about what should we be having on the plate, fruits and vegetables, grains, and protein. Again, protein doesn't mean meat. It could be eggs, are kind of questionable for meat, depending on where you stand, as vegetarian, but this could be soy or tofu or beans or nuts. There's all different ways you can have protein, and it's really flexible. Again, grains, you can see that it doesn't say it has to be rice or it has to be pasta, like just some kind of grain, but they are on here on the actual plate for a reason, because there are minerals and vitamins in all of those foods that are important, and they all work together, and we need all of them. We can't just leave them out. Now, when we talk about healthy habits, they're actually trends. So each time you eat, I can tell you as a dietitian, my plate does not look like this every time I eat, but the trend of how I eat does. So for my family, we snack on a lot of fruits and vegetables because we're more frugal, or we're more liberal with our meals. Tonight, full disclosure, while I'm here teaching you guys, my family is having buffalo chicken mac. Chicken nuggets, toss some buffalo sauce on top of mac and cheese with blue cheese crumbles. That's what we're having for dinner. So I made sure that my afternoon snack included some fruits and veggies, because I'm not having any for dinner, because I'm going to have buffalo mac, and it's going to be delicious, and I don't feel bad about it. So you have to realize that we're talking about eating well, fueling our minds and bodies well. It's a trend of everything that you're doing together. Now, I also want to emphasize here the importance of the family meal environment. You want to, especially as military families, have an environment that your family wants to come to. We don't want to have the end of our day, think about going to work. What if at the end of the day, right before you're leaving the office or you're shutting down your computer, you're going to have a meeting with your boss, and your boss is just going to tell you how terrible you're doing and how everything you did that day wasn't good enough. Like, that sucks. I don't want to go to that meeting, right? I'm going to start to dread it. I'm going to start to find reasons not to go. It's the same way with our family meals, whether you're eating at a table or we often eat at our kitchen. We have our base house has like a kitchen counter bar thing that we have stools at. We've eaten in the car. We've eaten at fast food restaurants. We've eaten in the living room in front of the TV on movie night. That's not as important as much of the environment. Are you creating a space that your family members want to come to, that they feel encouraged, that they feel supported, that they feel seen? That is important. So I don't want you to get hung up on what we're putting on the plate, because we're talking about this whole environment of how do we take care of our whole body and all of ourselves, and keeping this part really generic. Also, I want to go down quickly and just touch on these hand portion control hand references. And after that, the very last page you'll see is some common items that you can use for portion control. And all I will say about this is these are in here for reference to let you know where the starting point is. If you have small children, it might be less. It's also going to be their hand size, not yours. If you are larger in size, like my family, the Campbells are a large people. We eat more than this, and that's not bad, but this is sort of a reference point of where to start on all of those portions. And this is a great place to start if you find that you are consistently overeating, that you're over consuming, and that you're worried about food budget. This is a great way to start seeing, okay, how can I be mindful of what I'm eating, especially some of our more expensive foods, proteins. Meat is going to be one of your most expensive. And your fruits and vegetables are going to be, fresh fruits and vegetables are going to be some of your most expensive grocery items. So by just being mindful of how much of each you're eating, that can help you sort of stretch those dollars in regard to making sure you're not overeating or being wasteful, or like my 6-year-old, putting more on your plate than you're going to eat, which she's been in my family for 6 years and we're still having that conversation. So work in progress there. Well, same for me too. I do it too. But these are in here just for reference. So we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about portion control today. Again, back to that workbook. Man, I've got to figure out how to get this stuff on that slide deck because I do not like this scrolling, you guys. It's not my favorite. Okay, nutrition marketing. Let's talk about this. When we're thinking about the way that foods are marketed towards us, I want you guys to share with me, put in the chat, maybe chime in, unmute. Let me know what marketing words that you see for foods that either say they're healthier or not healthier, or hey, you should buy this. Like, what do you guys see when you go to like the grocery store?
I know at our installation, we're hearing a lot of keto right now. A lot of people are doing keto.
Yep. I've got it on there as my marketing buzzword. That's a big one right now. Keto, paleo. When I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, low fat was a big push. Organic, that's a buzzword, right? So we have to be aware. I'm making sure that I'm being mindful of time and including all of this. I wrote down a whole bunch. Again, I told you guys I have to write them all down. I have to write it down and see it. We've got one more in the chat. Fed a vegetarian diet, no antibiotics, pasture raised. Yep. Low sugar that's been swapped for fake sugars. Very good point there, Emily, on the fake sugars. Yeah. Other ones that we see a lot, calcium or vitamin D added, no artificial sweeteners, never frozen, plant-based, non-GMO, no sugar added, cage-free, free range, agave, organic, keto, right? These are all words that we hear in nutrition marketing. And so it's important to do some research on what those terms mean because there's so many. We are not going to get into a lot of them today. I will say, educate yourself on what they mean, what they stand for, and whether or not that's a priority for your family. I worked with a family that was very, very concerned with the humane treatment of animals. That was something they were willing to vote more with their dollars and spend more for something that they knew had been, antibiotic free and free range and humanely cared for, which was great, but that was something they were willing to exchange dollars for that term. And that's not bad, but you just have to know where you stand in terms of your budget, your time, your brain space on what these mean and whether or not you actually care about it. Organic is one that we see a lot. And I will say organic has to do with the agriculture methods and how an animal is raised or how it's fed or how a plant is grown. But organic foods outside of the United States, say, I don't know, organic blueberries from another country, when they get into port, they have to be sprayed with pesticides before they can come into the United States and be sold. So, and they were also shipped on a barge from another country, which furthers our dependency on foreign oil. So from an environmental standpoint, sure, didn't use chemicals in the way it was grown or harvested, but it was also shipped across, maybe an ocean and then sprayed with pesticides in port. So if you live somewhere that has fresh blueberries that might be conventionally grown, but they're down the street at a farm, that might be a better option from an environmental standpoint. So again, educate yourself on what these words mean and don't take don't take it from the front of the label. I wish that I had a food item up here with me. I should have brought, I have a kid's juice box. It's not the most like mom thing. Honest Kids. Look at this. Also, I love this juice. It's delicious. Honest Kids, organic twisted tropical tango, natural pineapple and mango juice. On the box, you can flip over the box. They don't have it on the individuals, but it tells you how much of it is fruit juice, if there's any sugar added. But I mean, they put it right here on the front of the label. Wait, where's my camera? Organic, USDA organic. What does that even mean? So educate yourself before you sort of go for what they're saying on the front of the label. Why do I even care? And also be aware that companies like Honest Kids have a marketing company and they design the front of the label and they make sure it has words on it that, like, I want to say entice. I was thinking entice you as the consumer to purchase it. That is not bad. I'm not saying that they shouldn't do that, but just be aware that the things you're seeing on the front of the label don't always communicate health or more nutritious foods. So again, nutrition marketing, be aware of those. And before we move on, talking about meal environment and nutrition marketing, I always recommend serving something familiar to your family. If you want to reduce that conflict at the meal, serve something that, that they like. like Honest Kids juice. But don't ever put down something totally brand new and then like get upset if your family rejects it. We have a family of 5. There's 3 kids. One of my children will consistently be the hater. They take turns, so that mixes it up for us, but someone is always hating on the meal. And I've just come to accept that somebody at the table is not going to be happy, but I try to include foods that I know that everyone will eat. Tonight, we have buffalo mac and cheese with blue cheese crumbles. My kids are getting a version that's just mac and cheese with chicken nuggets. My chicken nuggets will be tossed in buffalo sauce with blue cheese crumbles, and that's fine. So creating meals in a way that your family wants to come to the table, that there's not going to be conflict, but also that it's foods that you think they're going to eat. At least one of the foods at the table should be something that most of the family members will eat. Okay. Now, how to shop. When we're talking about how to shop, we talked about a little bit where we shop, right? But also let's talk about how we shop. Now, when we're looking for meats, I've got pork shoulder and pork loin on here. Sometimes you'll see a recipe call for pork tenderloin. A pork loin is a very similar cut, but much, much cheaper. Pork shoulder, bone in, is usually cheaper than boneless. It's also a very low cost cut of meat. If you don't eat pork, that's fine. Those are just the 2 that I listed there. Chuck eye steak is similar to ribeye steak, but it is the next rib over. So, you got all your ribs in your cow. One of those cuts is ribeye. The next one over has similar fat and similar fat marbling and similar meat texture, but it's a fraction of the cost because it's not ribeye. It's chuck eye. Chicken thighs are often way cheaper than chicken breasts, and they're actually higher in iron. That's why they're darker. They have that little bit different mouthfeel, a little bit fattier. It's got higher iron in it, higher amounts of hemoglobin. So if that's something that you don't mind the taste or texture difference, I told you. You need to go downstairs. Thank you for coming in.
I wanted to watch TV.
Wonderful. You can go and watch TV. I will talk to you in a little bit.
TV!
I apologize. And now the door is open and you're going to hear my children screaming. I apologize. Chicken thighs. These are going to be a little bit different taste and texture, but much more affordable a lot of the time, and are going to cook up similar in a recipe, like in a pasta or in a casserole. So that's a way you can save dollars. Beef brisket is a really great option. If you're looking for something with beef, a lot of the times you can take a similar recipe and use a beef brisket instead of maybe a different one. Fish, I put on here in season. Canned fish, of course, is always a great option. All of these meats, any meat cuts that you can buy frozen, are typically going to be cheaper than fresh butchered or fresh harvested. And fish are going to be in season. So wherever it is that you live, we live in Alaska. So right now the salmon aren't running in Alaska. They're out in the ocean. We can get ocean harvested salmon or halibut, but the salmon aren't running in the rivers right now. That's what it's called when they come up the river. So I would pay a lot more premium price for fresh salmon than when they're actively running in the river, right? Oh gosh, are these chats about, yeah, yes, the mom life. Sorry guys. Okay, so meats, be aware of some of those different cuts, how they cook up and what's cheaper. If you're at the grocery store and they look cheaper and you're like, I don't know what the difference is between this and this, look it up, Google it. I Google so many things. Look it up and find out if this cheaper meat cut is actually something that will work for your family and what you have in mind. Other proteins. All of these other proteins that are listed here are going to be cheaper than meat per serving. Eggs, even though they've gone up so much in price, are going to be the cheapest complete protein that you can get. Again, whether or not you want organic, cage-free, sung a lullaby as it was, the eggs were taken, whatever that is, but be aware of how chickens are treated, be aware of what's important to you, but then buy the eggs that your family likes. It's going to be a really affordable way to feed your family well on a budget, especially if you're looking at cutting that budget, cutting out some of your regular meat and switching to maybe doing a meat-free once a week with eggs or plant proteins, nuts and nut butters or dairy is going to be a way that you're going to see that cost savings right away just by cutting out meat maybe once a week. Okay, produce. We already talked a little bit about regional. So are you getting something that's grown far away and shipped in, like all of the produce with the commissary? Or are you getting something from your local farmers market or from your local growers? A lot of the times, I know with Kroger, even here in Alaska, our local Kroger uses some of the Alaska vendors and some of the Alaska farms for their food. So it'll say, like Alaska grown potatoes or something. So be aware of If there's something grown regionally, it's probably going to be more affordable. If you love avocados and you're in Southern California versus interior Alaska, you're going to see a different price for avocados, right? Likewise, you might see a different price for fresh sockeye salmon in Alaska and Southern California because of where it's harvested. So be aware of what's in your local area and what's seasonal. We know that right now is gourd season. So we're seeing pumpkins and squashes and apples and that sort of thing. It's going to be difficult if you want, say, fresh strawberries and you don't live in an area where they grow right now in season. You're going to see a lot more fall produce. There's a reason for that. So when you're shopping those seasonal produce items, fruits and vegetables, that's going to help keep your cost low because you're going to be purchasing those items as they're in season and the supply is higher and they're lower in cost. Of course, like we already mentioned, paying attention to sales, going to farmers markets, ready to eat produce is not necessarily a budget savings, but it is a sanity saver 100%. Buying the apple slices that are already cut up in individual packages, if you have the flexibility in your budget and it's $1.50 more, I had a season where I had 3 children under the age of 4. Pre-cut apple slices were very, very much appreciated in my house. Baby carrots that were ready to eat instead of carrots I needed to peel and cut were appreciated. Bagged salads, those are appreciated. I'm not going to cut up 17 different vegetables to make this beautiful salad. Maybe in another season of life. Right now, as a military spouse with 3 kids who's often on solo parent ops, I'm not doing it. So ready to eat produce is a great way to make sure you're getting those foods in a way that you're actually going to eat them and they're not going to go bad. Maybe spending an extra $1 or $2 to get that ready to eat item, or even taking home that bulk item, say bell peppers, and slicing them up and having them ready to go in the fridge. So purchasing ready to eat or having them ready to eat at your house. And then frozen and canned. I want to talk specifically about frozen and canned produce for a second. When fruits or vegetables are frozen or canned, they are preserved at peak nutrition, at peak freshness. So whether that's being flash frozen or whether it's being canned, they are taking that at its optimal nutrition and holding it steady. Frozen, of course, is frozen, needs to stay frozen, but you're going to see a texture difference in your frozen foods. Ice expands, so the water in those foods is going to expand and damage the structure of the fruit or vegetable. And then it's going to be more mushy. So if you want like a really crisp apple, I would not recommend buying frozen apple slices. When they thaw, they're going to be mushy. If you're making them into a pie, totally fine. Who cares if they're mushy? But be aware of what you're looking for, right? But frozen is a really great option. Same thing for canned. They're either going to add salt or sugar to change the biological environment. We won't get into all the biochemistry of it and the microbiology, but they change it so that bacteria won't grow in there as much, which isn't bad. That's why it can stay on your shelf for 2 years as a can of green beans. That's great. That's a really great food option to have. And they're usually more affordable. If the added sugar or added salt is something that you don't want, just rinse it. Take it, pour it in your colander, rinse it out. That's going to remove up to 30% of that salt or of that added sugar. That's fine. Just rinse it and then you can serve it. Again, really, really budget-friendly options that are going to be very nutritious with frozen and canned produce. Okay, grains. Whole grains are obviously preferable. You guys might hear a lot about that. You might see something like whole white bread. That's not a thing. Basically, grains have an outer bran layer, and when they're ground down and that's removed, you get refined flour. So if you just go buy, say, wheat bread, it just says wheat bread and it doesn't say stone ground flour or whole wheat flour, then it's just like stripped down of nutrients and then sometimes enriched back in. It still can be a nutritious part of your meal, but if you really want to get that bang for your buck nutrition-wise, whole grains are going to be a better way to go. You want to look for grains that are affordable. Most of them are going to be really affordable, but we even see some nutrition marketing in grains. So we'll see things like quinoa. Quinoa is the new fancy like problem solver, right? Guys, quinoa on average, last time I looked, which was about 6 months ago, is $6 for 1 pound of dried quinoa, which is a grain. Brown rice is about $1.25 for a pound of brown rice, just dry rice. If you flip over the nutrition, the calories, protein, and fiber are very, very similar for those 2 food items. So is quinoa great? Sure. Do you need to buy that really expensive grain? No, you can just use brown rice and still get really adequate nutrition for your family for a fraction of the cost. So be aware of what those things are. And of course, adding grain to anything is a great way to stretch a meal. So if you think about meat, you've heard of meatloaf, you add veggies and you add grain and breadcrumbs and you stretch that pound of meat to be an entire loaf, to be a meal. Think about having, shredded chicken or adding shredded chicken to a pasta dish with vegetables and noodles, right? It's going to help you stretch those dollars on some of those more expensive food items by adding rice or pasta or bread. So unless you are diabetic or have a reason that you're really, really watching those grains, this can be a great way to get in good nutrition at a fraction of the cost. Let's see, I buy a lot of meat when it is significantly reduced because it will expire soon. Then I freeze it and use it for another time. I think that's an Alaska trick. You might have learned that up here because I do that all the time too. Is this something I should continue or is it something I should avoid? Nope, I totally do it. As long as you're keeping it in a safe storage environment. So I would not recommend, getting meat and then freezing it for like 2 years before you use it. And then like cleaning out the deep freeze before PCS. That's might not be like the best texture and just best quality of your meat, but absolutely buying things when they're manager marked down or when they're about to expire and tossing them in the freezer until you're ready to use them is a really great way to save dollars and stretch your groceries if you have the storage space. Again, don't do that in your fridge, your camper fridge, because you won't have enough space. But if you have space at home, then yeah, totally do that. Okay, last one here, milk, dairy, and alternatives. I will sing the praises of dairy all day because I love it and because it's going to be more affordable than meat when we're looking at protein. But also, I specifically wrote down here to look for high protein options when you're looking at milk. Those are going to be things like cow's milk. I already told you guys we're lactose free in my house. So we do lactose free cow's milk, a soy milk, or a pea protein milk. And that is if you're looking for an alternative that replaces cow's milk. There's other things out there, there's almond milk or there's rice milk. Those nutritionally are not comparable. Are they fine for adding into smoothies? Sure. Are they fine for adding onto milk? Sure. But just be aware that when you're using those items, it's not nutritionally comparable to something like a cow's milk or a soy milk. Doesn't make it bad, just means that don't think in your brain, oh, my kids don't like milk, I'll give them almond milk. It's not the same. It's not nutritionally the same. Again, not a bad thing to have. I use almond milk in smoothies and overnight oats, but I just don't count it for a dairy or for a protein source. So educate yourselves on looking at those labels when you're at the store. Look at the foods that you're buying for your family and see, hey, this thing that says it's really healthy on the front, or this thing I saw a commercial about, is it actually as good as I thought it was? Take a couple of minutes and sort of look at that and look at those details of what matters to your family and what you're actually getting, again, with those dollars. Okay, now that we talked about how to grocery shop, I'm going to stand up and shut the store because my children are yelling, and I will be back in like 30 seconds. Okay, again, I apologize, but that is very distracting for me. Okay, we're going to talk about how to eat in two different ways, eating in and then the reality of eating out. How do we do that in a way that stretches our budget and also encourages our family to actually freaking eat the food that we give them and not fight us on what we're having? Okay. Ideas to eat in. You want to automate as much as you can. And when I say automate, think of those go-to meals, those ones that when you're on vacation or when you're in a TLF or when you're in a bind or you've just flown back in town or whatever, what are those go-to meals that go well for your family? Is it tacos? Is it spaghetti? Is it, is it quesadillas? Is it grilled cheese and tomato soup? What are those go-to meals that in a bind, that your family is going to eat? And when you identify some of those, have those on hand. Spaghetti is a matter of having meat, if you like meat in your spaghetti sauce, a jar of sauce, if you do jarred sauce. I like to make homemade sauce, but I also keep jarred sauce on hand because that's real life. A jar of sauce, a box of pasta and meat in the fridge, and a shaker cheese in the pantry. Like I know at any given time, I can whip up a big batch of spaghetti, right? So that's a good backup, especially where I live is very remote. We don't have fast food that we can drive through. So if we get in a bind, I still have to make dinner. So think of those things that can help you automate. What are those backup meals? What are those favorite meals that you guys like? And then also think of your quick, like in a pinch meals. We used to live near a Costco and I would go pick up a rotisserie chicken and a bag of salad. Like that was dinner. Those rotisserie chickens for $4.99 that are giant and delicious. That's what we would get. I knew that Publix was a grocery store near us, and I could swing in and get chicken fingers and like a side of their mac and cheese and a bag salad, right? Obviously, I'm a fan of salad, but I don't like chopping it up myself. But knowing that eating in doesn't always mean food you're creating at home. It could be food that you're picking up and bringing home. So be aware of what those backups are so that you can have those ready. And I gave you guys space here to write, to brain dump while I'm talking. Brain dump some of those favorites that you know your family's going to eat with very little conflict, that aren't overwhelming. Okay, my family will eat Thanksgiving dinner, but that is not a good backup plan for us. It's barely a good enough plan, once or twice a year. So what are those favorites you know your family will eat? And what are those backup plans that are something that maybe you could have on hand? Another great one is a chicken fried rice, or just fried rice. Some frozen veggies, some rice, some sauce, and some eggs scrambled in. Like, that's a really simple, easy meal. Ramen noodles with a soft boiled egg. Like, what ways can you have really easy meals that you can sort of keep on hand? Because that's going to save you brain space and save you dollars when it comes to cooking and making sure that you're saving money with your family. And then also, did I put it up here? Oh yeah, automating as well. You can have a theme. I want to make sure my microphone is still working because it just popped up with a message for me. Let me make sure.
You're all good.
Okay, good. It just popped up. Oh, nope, there we go. Still good. Okay. I hate when those messages pop up and you're like, wait, am I talking to the air now? Automate. You want to make sure that you're automating. Maybe you have a meat-free Monday, I know is something people do, or hey, Friday night is going to be pizza night or leftovers, like just a blanket rule. Mom's not cooking, or dad, whoever does the cooking, or grandma, whoever is in your home making the meals. We don't cook on Fridays. Sorry. We order pizza or we do leftovers. For my family, we do Taco Tuesdays. It's not always tacos, it's quesadillas or salads or soups, whatever sort of Mexican themed food on Tuesdays. And it could be chicken or pork or taco or beef or salmon or vegetarian with, just beans. But I know that every week, Tuesday is going to be something Mexican related. So how can you automate in your brain space so you're not constantly thinking about this over and over? And we're going to talk about meal planning. Again, remember, I'm talking about meal prepping, but there's a 4-step method that I always recommend that really, really helps automate this whole system for you. And I want to walk you guys through it. And it's just the word meal, M-E-A-L, meal. The first step is monitor the environment. And what I mean by that is, what does your schedule look like? What does your budget look like? What sales are happening? Just know what's going on. For example, tonight, I knew for here in Alaska, it's only 5 p.m. So I know that I'm teaching during what would be normally dinner cooking time. So dinner is buffalo mac and cheese, something very simple that is easy for my family to make in my absence. I planned that ahead knowing what the schedule looked like, right? So don't plan out what you want to have for dinner and then look at practices or look at schedules. Like, monitor your environment, know if your spouse is going to be late, if you've got travel, know what's going on, know what food is in. This takes us to the next one. Step 2, evaluate the inventory. Know what food you have on hand. What have you already paid for? What's in your pantry? What's in your freezer? What's in your fridge? What's on sale this week? We already know. I told you guys, I go to Costco. Does Costco have anything on instant savings this week that I want to pick up while I'm there? Does Publix, the grocery store we had in Alabama, do they have anything on BOGO that I want to stock up on while we're there? So know your inventory and know what your staple items are too. Is there something I need to be picking up? Oh, we're low on milk, or we're low on eggs, or we're low on dog food. What are those regular items you need to be picking up? So you can streamline and not have to go to the store every other day because you forget something, even though that still totally happens sometimes. But how can we start streamlining this process so that we can ease some of that burden and not be so overwhelmed? And also, when you're evaluating, you want to make sure that you're using your purchased foods first. So, and we'll talk about this in just a minute, but as your week comes up, if something has to shift, make sure that you're being aware of what can go later in the week and what needs to be used, right? So if you have produce that's going to go bad, okay, I can use that this week, but I'm planning on Sunday. Don't wait for Friday for that meal item. That really should probably be something on Monday, especially here in Alaska for fresh fruits and vegetables. It won't make it to Friday. So be aware of those things, evaluating your inventory, what needs to be used up, and does something need to be used sooner than later in the week. Okay, so number 3, assemble the plan, which sounds so simple, but you need to monitor the environment, know what's going on with your family and your budget and your schedule, know what you have on hand or what you want to be buying, and then assemble your plan. Literally just take a pencil, put it in your phone. You can put it in Google Calendar as a task. You can write it on your church bulletin, whatever it is, but just assemble a generic or a general, hey, this is the direction we're going to be going this week. Assemble your plan and find a way to communicate that with your family. So for us, we just have a whiteboard. It's a regular picture frame. You guys can't see up there. I have a picture frame, and I just took the thing out of it, and underneath it, I put a paper that has every day of the week, and I write on the glass with magic eraser or a dry eraser. It's not even fancy. It's not even like an Etsy one. It's just a regular homemade one, but it's a way for me to write down what we're doing. 1, I do it in dry erase because it's easy to do over and over. And 2, I have it displayed in an area of my home that everybody sees. So if my spouse beats me to the meal, or if my kids are asking, I have kids that are old enough to read, they know what's coming up. They know what to expect, and it eases some of that burden on me of always, of always being in charge of communicating that with people. We make the plan, and then I make it available so that anybody who is around can see what is coming up. Also, if you make it to making dinner before me, you know what we're having. You can go start executing because I've planned it. And then the 4th one is listen and be flexible. So that's the L. And that's just listening to your family, paying attention as the week goes on, because we've all had those days where the day just goes to hell in a handbasket. And we say, you know what? Forget it. We're having cereal tonight, and we're going to try again tomorrow for the thing I planned. That's okay. Be confident that as the expert in your family, you know what your family needs. You know the schedule, you know the emotions, you know the mental state of yourself, your children, your spouse, your budget. Like, you know all of those moving parts better than anybody. Have confidence in that if you need to adjust the plan, that's okay. That's not bad. And your plan isn't going to look like anybody else's. That's also not bad. That's good that you know exactly what your family needs, and that you can move with confidence knowing that you're making the best decisions for everybody's well-being. And yes, it's more than what they're eating if it's organic or if it has lots of calories. So be flexible with it. Have those backup plans. Know how to switch things around. Know that if you bought fresh produce, that might be the one you still want to make tomorrow. And maybe we can push the spaghetti with the jarred sauce to next week. Just be aware of what are you going to push that's potentially going to cost you because that food's going to go bad. So be intentional about that as well. Okay, now those are all of the tips for eating in, sort of how to look at those groceries, how to be shopping, how to set up that meal plan, how to create those meals, again, with that My Plate visual that we looked at in the beginning. Now, how to eat out. The reality is we eat out. We eat out. Keep a tablet in the kitchen so someone else someone else can get it started. I'm telling you, having readers that can read the menu and don't ask me 17 questions a day, like, it's made a big difference in just communicating that with my family. Okay, how to eat out. The reality is that we eat out. Sometimes we eat out on purpose. Sometimes we eat out on accident, but there's a few ways that we can do this. Some examples of eating out: school lunch or childcare lunch. Sharing food items is one way that you can save money when you are eating out. If you're, ordering, you can also bring food from home to eat out. That would be like if you're taking lunch to work or you're sending a lunch to school. But also if you're going to an activity for a member of your family, you can pack a picnic. You can pack a meal to take with you. You could do a hybrid where maybe you're driving through for your entree and you're bringing fruits and vegetables to munch on the way. Maybe you're going to the baseball park where, the kids are going to want a hot dog. Great. Everyone's having hot dogs, and I'm going to bring some apple slices, or I'm going to bring some squeezy apple sauces and some popcorn with us. And that's what we're having for dinner. That's okay. Recognizing where your limit is and finding ways that work for your family is really important. So some of those tips, using school lunch or childcare lunch, if that is available to you, you can apply for free or reduced lunch this year. It's no longer free for everybody, but you can fill out that paperwork. You can also just regular, purchase lunch for your kids. You can share food items when you're out and about. You can order just the entree instead of a meal. You'd be surprised how much money you can save by share, getting an extra, like at McDonald's, one of us will get a meal, we'll share the drink, we'll share the fries, and we'll get an extra sandwich. Well, here in Alaska, a value meal at, say, McDonald's is like $13. That's a significant difference for me to just order the sandwich for $7. So those things can add up when they start becoming part of your regular routine, right? So ordering just entrees. And then be intentional about ordering foods when you're out that you can't make at home. Like, I hate when my kids want to go somewhere and order peanut butter and jelly. Like, no, I can make you peanut butter and jelly for 37 cents at the house. Like, no, order something different. Likewise for you, if you are going out to eat, like, enjoy it. Order something that you won't make. We have a shellfish allergy in our house. I'm not making shrimp scampi at home, just not. So if my husband wants shrimp scampi, he better order it at a restaurant because I'm not making it at home. That is a perfect example. Like, you know what, you're going to go out, you should go get some shrimp scampi because I'm not making it at the house. So order foods that you want to be eating that maybe you don't have the means or the desire to be cooking at home. And then another one is making sure that you're ordering food that keeps well at home. Air fryers have helped a lot. Now, leftover French fries can be saved with an air fryer, but there's some foods that don't go well left over. So be intentional. Maybe you've ordered, you've got 2 entrees, say you're on a date night, you got 2 entrees and an appetizer. Okay, which of this is going to still be good tomorrow? Which one isn't? The nachos that are covered in stuff are not going to be good. So I suggest you eat the nachos and take home your entree, right? Things like that. So those are ways that you're going to help stretch those dollars and eat out intentionally. We're going to enjoy our food, but we're also going to make sure that we're not being wasteful with our resources or our food, making sure you're ordering things that will keep well later. And then I think I had one more. Oh, there's post-workshop feedback survey. Another thing about eating out is just being aware that it's part of your routine. And if you're looking at your schedule and you know that, hey, we're going to be running around on baseball night. My kids played baseball in Alabama. That's why I reference it so often. And they were very young. We know it's going to be baseball night. We know we're going to drive through. Then plan for that. It's already baseball night's going to be a drive-through night. And then now later, when we get in a bind on Monday, oh, well, I'm not going to drive through because I already know I'm driving through on Thursday, and that's fine. Or maybe, you know what, I'm driving through twice this week. But just know and be intentional about it. Be intentional in the dollars that you're spending. Be intentional in the food that you're ordering. Be intentional to make sure that you're not wasting, money, that you're not wasting food, and that you're getting foods that you actually enjoy eating and doing so in a smart way. I don't know many people who really want to spend extra dollars to make sure everybody has their own French fries. So that's a way of maybe, hey, we're going to get 2 meals. We're going to share all the fries. We're also going to bring some produce along from the house. And we're going to do sort of half eat out, half eating from the house, or we're going to eat a snack before we go because we don't all need to eat, 3 baskets of chips and salsa, which, full disclosure, we don't have great Mexican restaurants where I am. So I will eat all of the chips and salsa if I find a good place. But just know that there's no one size fits all of how to eat out or how to eat in or what works. These are just some tips and tricks that I have found that worked in my community, that work for my family as a 1-income military family with busy kids and busy schedules, and ways that we have found to stretch the dollars, to plan intentionally, to know what to buy at the grocery store, what resources are available, how to plan at home, how to make sure food isn't going to waste, and how to still be able to incorporate things like eating out in our routine without feeling like we're wasting extra money or wasting tons of dollars. I'm going to stop my screen share because you guys don't need to just look at this anymore. You'll see in your handout that there are all of those resources in the back. So everything that we've talked about is linked in those resources. Most of the things that I have shared with you guys today are in your workbook. And that's on purpose. That's so that while you're listening, you can be brain dumping those extra things that come to mind, or that you could be taking notes of things I was saying or different things that you see in the chat, so that later you don't have to try to remember all of it. It's right here in this workbook. It's all ready for you to reference right there. So please feel free to unmute. We have about 14 minutes before we wrap up. I want to know what questions you guys have, maybe something that you learned that you thought was really helpful, or even different things you've seen in your local area that you would like to share with all of us who are here.
Hi, Heather. I have a question about pastas. I've noticed that a lot of things like the mac and cheese and, different kinds of pastas that are incorporating vegetables like the cauliflower and all of that. Does that really make a difference, or is it better just to stick with the tried and true, just like standard pasta?
I'll ask you this. Does it make a difference for what?
To be healthier. As opposed, especially like I'm thinking of the kids ones, the Easy Mac, is it better to have just like the, having the cauliflower one in the pantry versus the standard, if we need to go that route?
Short answer, no. Long answer, if you have incredibly picky kids who will not eat vegetables in any way, shape, or form any other time, then something like cauliflower rice or cauliflower pasta or the bonsai pasta that's made with chickpeas, that's a great option to get some of those nutrients in a way that your children might not normally eat it. I've also seen things with like the Sneaky Chef, I think it was something like that, where they mix in like pureed squash into the mac and cheese, right? But you have to think of, one, is it a huge texture difference that is going to make it less enjoyable? I've known people have switched to like cauliflower crust for pizza and it's gone fine. I happen to really love the regular crust on Papa John's pizza. So I just order regular, but it sort of depends on where your concern is and what the goal is, and also your budget, because those things are typically going to be a lot more expensive and not necessarily more nutritious. They're just made with a different base ingredient. So if you're trying to make sure that your kids are getting those nutrients, absolutely. I would honestly probably recommend just getting the regular mac and cheese for that example that that they like, and then mixing in a vegetable. Maybe you have mac and cheese and you mix in peas. Like, that's a fun one. It's a different color. It's a different shape. Or maybe you throw in, frozen mixed veggies that you microwave and you toss that in there, right? So I would rather, from a picky kid perspective, learn more about what the food actually looks like and actually tastes like than hide it or try to less guilt myself for mac and cheese. Like, boxed mac and cheese is boxed mac and cheese and it's delicious and it serves a purpose. And if that's what you need to survive a crazy season, don't feel bad about just giving your kids regular mac and cheese. It's totally fine. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Yes. The lazy genius. She's so awesome. She has tons of stuff. Emily, I see that in the chat.
I think before you've also mentioned, is it the WIC app?
Yes. The WIC Shopper app.
Oh,
if you are looking for different recipes, that one, if you qualify for WIC and you get their vouchers, which now it's not vouchers, it's a card, but if you qualify for WIC services, you've probably already heard about this app. If not, you can still get it. WIC Shopper. You just go in your app store or Google Play Store and you can look it up, but it will bring up tons of different recipes that are really affordable and simple. And they're going to use a lot of WIC ingredients, things like whole grains, things like beans or peanut butter or produce or cheese or milk, all those foods that WIC covers and pays for. They have this entire app that has just recipes that are ready to use. So if you sort of find yourself getting sucked down a Pinterest rabbit hole of like fancy ingredients, like, oh, here's 37 simple family meals and every single one of them is cream of chicken soup. You're like, okay, well, these are actually all like the same thing. Or they're all really fancy things. Like, the WIC Shopper app is a really great resource for finding affordable foods that are simple, that are made for busy families. Does anybody else have any questions, any burning things? Of course, again, to circle back to the mac and cheese, like, having cauliflower rice or cauliflower pasta, those aren't bad. You just have to kind of think of where it's coming from. And I think one of the things in teaching this workshop and sharing some of these budget tips, sharing some of these very basic principles of healthy eating, is the point is to help you be confident in the way that you're feeding your family and recognize that, like, actually, I don't really care if my pasta is made with regular pasta instead of cauliflower. Like, that's fine. Today's boxed mac and cheese, it's not less boxed mac and cheese if it's cauliflower, right? So having that confidence and recognizing that you're the expert in your family and the needs in your budget, your schedule, your mental wellness, and then sort of moving forward with confidence in that, even if it means cereal's fortified. Use a high protein milk, throw some fresh fruit on top of that bad boy and call it good. Don't even feel guilty of, oh, I fed the kids cereal again. Like, cereal is actually a very adequate, nutritious meal. Props to you. You fed the kids or your spouse or yourself. But great. That's a great food to have. So we have to sort of get out of this mindset of feeling guilty about the way that we're eating, or guilty that it's not organic, or guilty that it's this, or guilty that it's that. Like, everybody's situation is different, and that's not bad.